Hello, good morning. Rev'd Julie here from St Mark's Church, Brampton, with this morning's reflection. Today I'm going to actually read from the Bible so that it makes more sense when I come to do the reflection. We've been looking at Mark's Gospel and we're in the 4th chapter, and beginning to read at verse 35, this is what it says. On that day, when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." And, leaving the crowd behind, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was. Other boats were with him. A great gale arose, and the waves beat into the boat, so the boat was already being swamped. But he, that is, Jesus, was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him up and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" He woke up and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." Then the wind ceased and there was a dead calm. He said to them, "Why are you afraid? Have you still no faith?" And they were filled with great awe and said to one another, "Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" I have a confession to make. I am a landlubber. The very thought of going on a boat causes me to feel sick in my stomach. Quite why, I do not know, but the motion sickness and the smell of diesel, it's very real, and I avoid it as much as I can. Some time ago, I was on a ferry crossing from Santander in North Spain to Plymouth in Devon, across the Bay of Biscay in January. 24 hours of stormy seas, and I counted down every single minute of all 24 hours, fortunately in the privacy of a cabin which had a toilet. Say no more. As a passenger, sleep was not possible, and all I wanted was for it to be over. Never was I so glad to be back on dry land as I was that morning. So as we've just heard today's story from Mark chapter 4, it therefore fills me with foreboding. A group of people getting into their boats to sail through the night to the other side of a lake so large it is known as the Sea of Galilee. If they had known a storm was coming, would they have set out? Highly unlikely. A storm by day is one thing, but in the pitch black of night, any storm is always going to be a challenge. But not, it would seem, to their passenger. Jesus had snuggled down in the stern, was asleep on the cushion. It had been Jesus's idea to cross the sea, his idea to go during the evening, after dark, and by all accounts they made no special preparations, just upped and left, taking Jesus in their boat, just as he was, as it says in verse 36. Other boats were with them, and their shared destination was over the other side. Faithfully following Jesus, doing as they were asked, having listened to his teaching, watched him heal people, challenge the so-called great and the good, I imagine their spirits were high and they felt safe heading out into the dark and heading off to an unknown destination with Jesus in the boat. They felt safe, that is, until the storm hit them, and hit them hard. Here's my first point. Following Jesus will involve going through storms. Out of nowhere and threatening their very lives, soaked through, physically, mentally, emotionally at their limits, literally scared to death, they could not believe that Jesus was still asleep and not helping them to stay afloat. If anything, having Jesus on board and asleep meant that they were carrying a dead weight, which was just making their fight for survival even more treacherous. No wonder the words, shouted above the sound of the storm, were so harsh and full of anguish. "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing. Being a follower of Jesus involves us going through storms. Being a follower of Jesus can be dangerous, and when we get into trouble, deep trouble, the one we thought would protect us is asleep, as good as dead, absent by his silence. We find ourselves in the drama, the mess, the life-threatening situation, precisely because we embarked on this journey for Jesus' sake. So here is my second point. When in a storm, cry out to Jesus. The disciples said it as it was. Don't you care? And I take heart from their honesty with Jesus. Only last week I was with someone and I had occasion to be really honest with them, saying how I was really feeling as I was caught up in a sudden storm. My companion reminded me that being honest with God is the only way to be with God. When God appears to be asleep and the silence is deafening, yes, cry out to God. And then we must listen to his response. And here is my third point. It is the storm travels that are the faith-building expeditions. In verse 39, Jesus responded to their cry by waking up, by speaking to his words to the wind and the sea. And in that moment, they ceased to be in turmoil, became still. Peace was restored, and we read, there was a dead calm. Externally, the storm had resolved. The wind stopped blowing, the waves stopped crashing, and the disciples' voices were silenced. The dead calm that came upon the scene was complete. Shalom, peace was once more established, and they were delivered from their distress. Delivered from their distress and left wondering, who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him? This is Jesus, whose trusting faith in God exceeds all expectations, whose trusting faith in God enables him to be able to sleep through storms, and will eventually take him to the cross, the tomb, and the resurrection. This is the sort of faith that Jesus wants his disciples then and now to learn to claim for their own. The faith that trusts in God never to let us go. So to recap, following Jesus will involve going through storms. When in a storm, cry out to Jesus. And remember, it is the stormy travels that are the faith-building expeditions. May you go well into this day and into this coming week. God bless. Amen.